Hi, my name's Sue Richardson, and I'm running a PhD research project to look at how we can embed study skills and improve engagement with students at BIM. For 8 years, I was a music theory tutor at BIM Brighton, and now I'm part of the PG Cert team. 2 years ago, when I started the PhD, I did a pilot project to look at how what our concerns were around studying, asking students and staff to talk about their experiences. And I'm going to talk you through some of the results of that pilot project. If you want to read more about it, you can find it on musostudy.com. So I asked students what their favourite class was in year one, and overwhelmingly they said it was the practical sessions. The ones that they didn't like, they said, were the vocational sessions. And when I looked into this, it was because it was the music business that they didn't like. This wasn't for the music business students, and that's because they see it as a very academic module. Then I asked them the reason for their preference, and I can categorise this into 4 main areas: learning and teaching, practical versus academic, relevance and enjoyment. With learning and teaching, the students much preferred classes where they really liked the tutor, and they were really turned off by classes where they really didn't like the tutor. If the tutor was boring, things like that, it would just turn them off. They definitely prefer the practical based sessions rather than the academic ones, but it wasn't just the practical modules that they liked, it was the sessions which were taught in more of a practical way. They need to see the classes as relevant to them. If they don't see the module as relevant, then they disengage very quickly. And also enjoyment played a really big factor, and if they were bored, then they would switch off really easily. One student said even the tutor looked bored. This was an awful subject. I asked them what they found most difficult about studying, and they said it was managing their time, also some discontent with the course. And what came up a lot was that they were really struggling around assessment time. And when I looked into that, it's to do with the fact that all the assessments seem to come at the same time, all the hand-in dates are, and it's because they haven't prepared for those assessments throughout the course, and then they get overwhelmed at, when the hand-in dates all come together. I asked them what could help them with their studying at BIM, and they asked for study skills, time management and academic support in the main. So I feel like we have a gap. Our students are mainly not from an academic background. 60% don't have A-levels. They've come through to BIM through other avenues such as BTECs. Also, there's a gap caused with the experience of the tutors. We're all employed because we're industry experts. However, we've not been taught in how to teach academic skills. And so we have students who come along needing academic skills, and we don't know how to teach them. So Musostudy is a model that I've designed to try and bridge that gap and to give us some tools as tutors to feel like we're getting students more engaged, more ready for their assessments, and hopefully teaching them the skills within our sessions to help them achieve all of that. I know that we have academic study support, but research shows that when skills are taught within the specific sessions that they need to use them in, that it's a lot more effective. So the model that I've designed is in 3 parts. It's looking at module mastery. So we want our students to master the requirements of the module so that they pass successfully. So we already help them with knowledge mastery. We're teaching them the knowledge that they need. We're teaching them vocational skills that they need, such as instrumental skills or the skills you need to run an event. We also have to help them throughout the year with assessment mastery, and I feel like maybe that's something that we could do earlier on to get them prepared in the classes so that the time management isn't such an issue for them. I also want to look at engagement. The more self-aware students are about their learning and their motivation, the more part of a group that they feel, then the more that they're going to engage with our classes. And like I said, from the pilot project, if students can be engaged in practical classes that they can see have a relevance to them, then they're more likely to succeed. And I've also built in some nudges to try and prompt students into making some positive choices. And then the last bit of the model is the academic study skills that we need them to have. So the critical thinking, being able to read texts, academic texts in a critical way, academic writing, and also the reviewing and reflecting that they need to be able to do to reflect on their learning. This is a little model within a model, because I feel that if we teach critical thinking first and get them to start to unpack and criticize and question what we're giving them, then they can apply those skills to the reading that they do. Once they feel more familiar, then the academic writing will have more of a background of information and more skills, and that will help them with the reviewing and reflecting. So I've developed a toolkit of things that we can use to help put this model into place. So it's going to help us with mastery for module assessments, helping us to embed study skills, not just into practical sessions, but into all of our sessions. And helping us to design and run effective time management activities, and trying to look at ways that we can put those into our sessions without overcrowding the sessions. And also generating better attendance and engagement. And to generate TLAs, Chapter 3 explains the background and the theories to the model that I've created, and so can help you to generate your own teaching and learning activities. But also Chapter 4 is a whole load of teaching and learning activities that I've developed for you to use, and there's lots of worksheets and images that accompany these for you to also use with your students. So one example of a TLA from Musostudy is how to cite a reference. Lots of students get really hung up on Harvard referencing, and it becomes a big deal towards the end of the year. So we can start to embed this rather than teaching it explicitly. And one way of doing that is to give students a short excerpt of an academic text that we want them to use as part of their course. And if it's a text that's relevant to the knowledge session in that week that we're delivering, then it means that we're embedding it better. So we get them to read a short text, and we give them the Harvard reference. And then once they've discussed it with a peer, they can then write a short paragraph and cite something from that text into the paragraph. So they don't need to know how to build a Harvard reference, they just need to know which bits of the Harvard reference they need to take out to be able to cite that article. We can then reduce some of this scaffolding and repeat this process, and the writing can form part of their final assessment. We could also then ask them to seek out their own texts that we want them to use. So maybe going on to EBSCO, because that's a resource that we know that we need them to be able to access. And gradually they can start to build their own Harvard references as they're finding texts to read. Another thing that we want students to be able to do is take notes. Research shows that if students take notes by paper and pen in the old-fashioned way, then they retain that information better, they can take it in, they can use that information and reconceptualize it, which leads to deeper learning. So instead of our slides becoming just a dump of loads and loads of information, we can pare down our slides and make what we talk about in the session more important. One way of doing this is to use Cornell note-taking. There are other methods that you could use. So as an example, we could start a session by having a revision of what we did last week. And on the board, the tutor could set out the board like a Cornell note-taking sheet and can ask the questions and write down the thoughts and the summary in the same way that you would with Cornell note-taking. And this helps just to revise what you've done the previous week, so it's getting students to think and reconnect with the module. Then you ask students to take notes on the information you're now going to give them in a Cornell note-taking style. Let them know that at the end of the session they're going to need their notes for an activity. So you deliver the information via the slides, you take away all that information, hopefully the students have taken notes, and you set an activity where they need to recall those notes. And if you repeat this every few weeks, then the students are going to get used to the fact that taking notes is important. And also, if we've pared down our slides and we have less information on them, then students are going to know that they can't just go, oh, well, I'll look it up on Moodle later. It's important to have lots of good information on our slides because students do use it for revision, but we don't want them to be just there for revision. We want them to be something that we use as part of active learning within the class. One way of doing that is to put up a motivational quote on the slides while we're talking about the knowledge that we're delivering, or maybe just some of the nuts and bolts of running the session. So for example, if your students really need to book some tutorials and they're not, maybe you could put up a little calendar of your availability for that week. Book the students in there and then so they don't have to go and do it, and then send them a message beforehand to prompt them to attend as well. Nudges are about trial and error, and they diminish over time the more that you use them. So you might want to use this a few times. You might only need to use it when you feel that things are really building up and you need students to have a tutorial. Another good nudge is emailing absent students, and it can really prompt them to re-engage with the class. The government's nudge unit has found that if you personalise your messages and offer them some help and some personalised words within the message, then they're more likely to engage with it. So if a student misses a session, send them an email or send them a message. Make it relevant, make the session that they've missed sound like something that was really relevant to them, and it would have been really good if they attended. Offer them a catch up, and then also reinforce what they're going to miss if they don't turn up next week. And again, sell it to them and make it sound like something that is going to be relevant to them. All of the TLAs that I've written in the toolkit are set out in a similar way, and they all have, or a lot of them have, linked resources which you'll find on musostudy.com. So for example, if you wanted to use bingo in your class, you can go to the website, find the bingo image which you can use on slides, and there's also a worksheet which you can download and print out for students so that they can write on some of the aims that they're going to use within the bingo activity. I'd really love you to be involved in the research. So what I'm doing is, over the next 2 years, I'm going to be testing out the effectiveness of this model and the toolkit. So cycle 1 is going to start on the 30th of September when all our students start, and it's going to run for the whole of the academic year. At the end of the year, I'll review how Musostudy's been, maybe make some tweaks, rewrite some things, and then I'll run the whole cycle again in the following year. So what I'm asking from you is that you plan and deliver Musostudy style sessions. It doesn't have to be every single week, and it doesn't have to be every single part of the model. It's whatever seems relevant to you in your module. And then any lesson plans and resources that you create based on Musostudy, I'd like you to share back with me so I can see how it's being used, see how it's developing. I'd also like you to keep a reflective journal after each session. This doesn't have to be a big, long Byron-esque diary. It could just be a few voice notes that you audio record and then email to me. But it's important for me that I can see the development of the model, what works, what doesn't work. I also need you to survey the students to find out what they think of the sessions. They're short, online, easy to access surveys, which will only take a few minutes. There's only 10 questions, and I'll ask you to do it about every 5 weeks. So one at the start of term, one mid-term, one at the end of term. I'd also like to come and see Musostudy in practice. So I'd like to come and visit you when you're teaching one of your sessions. If I can't be there in person, then I would like to remotely video them. Obviously, this would all be with your consent, and we would choose which sessions you'd be happy for me to be observing. And it wouldn't be to assess your teaching, it would just be to look at how Musostudy is working and to get some ideas from you of what works and what doesn't. To be able to video the sessions, we need informed consent from students, and I'll help you to do that. And then I'd also like you to be available for an interview at the end of the year so that we can go through everything to do with how you've used Musostudy, so that I can get that data to help me to redevelop. So thank you very much for your time. If you are interested, then please do email me. If you're not interested in signing up, but you do use Musostudy, then please do email me and just tell me what you've been using and what you like about it. Use the hashtag Musostudy, and you can tweet me, Instagram me. I will be Instagramming top tips for students, motivation quotes and things on Instagram anyway, so it'd be really good to get an online conversation and an awareness amongst students about this as well. Thank you very much.